Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today we have a video of the Tier 3 Japanese cruiser, the Tenryu. And it is sent in by Cheesy Spud, and this is a bit of an interesting game, but it's an interesting ship as well. I often mock, and I'm just going to stop them from spinning around so much, I often kind of mock these low-tier Japanese cruisers, the Tenryu and the Kuma, because they really are floating citadels. They're so easy to damage and wipe out because they're kind of just oversized destroyers, really. You know, even look at the guns. The layout is that of a destroyer, and some of these ships were built as destroyer leaders. So they're kind of meant to be the bigger ship of the group. But what the Tenryu does lack in armor and guns, it makes up for it by having some pretty potent torpedoes. And you can see already Cheesy Spud is not being cautious. Enemy St. Louis there, which is often the bane of everything at Tier 3. And they're just going straight at it. They managed to get a fire on the St. Louis, which is really the goal, and you know, they've taken some pretty big damage back. And right away you can see the major difference between the Tenryu and the St. Louis. Both are Tier 3 cruisers. The St. Louis has 29,500 health, the Tenryu 17,700. Now the reason for that disparity is those torpedoes. All the St. Louis has going for it is a lot of guns and hit points, whereas the Tenryu is more of a stealth assassin type of cruiser. And honestly, played right, probably prepares you for further down the line. Ships like the Furitaka, the Aoba, they're great ships, but they do much better when played a little more cautiously and in that hit and run role, and the whole Japanese line really is like that. So next up is this Friant, and Cheesy Spud is making okay work of them, getting a fire there, but a V-25 pulls their attention because you just can't afford to ignore destroyers. Now the rest of the team doesn't seem to be doing much, and what already concerns me is they're very spread out. If you look at the enemy team is all grouped up right here. And you'll also notice I have controls in replay again. There was a small patch today, and part of me wonders if that fixed some of the replay issues that I've been seeing of late. Either way, very nice to be able to do. So Spud launches off some torps at the V-25, figuring anything that destroyer can do, he can do too. And while they're not going to hit, they are going to force the V-25 to slow up or turn. And either of those outcomes really helps Cheesy Spud narrow them down and work them over. Like if that V-25 had to have turned side on, easy target. And I think it's pretty safe to say there's torpedoes coming Spud's way. And the main reason I say that, well, V-25 has those nose-launched torpedoes, but they do have to turn a bit, and it looks like they did. And Spud's taking no breaks, going right back to that Friant, and getting some good hits in, and already they're up to 31,700 damage, closing in on double their HP, 1 kill in, and leading the team off pretty well. But the concern is continuing to set in even more. The enemy team has balled up incredibly. This Friant is really the only lone target, and Spud's probably going to finish it off here. One more good hit like that, and they are done. And hopefully, before Spud loses this friendly destroyer, swapping to HE, hoping for just that last bit of damage. There it is, they get the kill. The Samson gets to live. But what concerns me, the enemy team is so close, and they're all close to this Nassau, and you can see how quickly that ship is losing health just because a lot of things are firing it. Not everyone, but a lot of the enemy team. And low-tier battleships, any battleship for that matter, doesn't do great around just highly concentrated fire. A battleship against 1 or 2 targets you can tank that pretty much all day, use your repairs to keep you in the fight, and you'll normally finish someone off before you get knocked down too much. But against 4 or 5 targets all working you down, you never get a chance to run through those damage controls. And the Nassau is trying to back out, and I think they would have been better to have kept their forward momentum, just looped around the island and turned. But what's going to happen is that Nassau is going to get finished, and then all the attention is going to swap to that South Carolina. Now, Cheesy Spud is doing a decent job here. They're on the flank, which is really where Japanese vessels excel, and providing supporting fire. Meanwhile, something brought that Samson down to 9 hit points, and now they're sitting stationary, which I would like to see them doing something more than that. That Samson could use a lot of this island cover to get in close and go for a last-ditch torpedo run. You know, a lot of times, yeah, you want to keep the points for your team, but this early, getting some big damage out with those torpedoes, I think could be very valuable. And destroyers have that stealth advantage, so they can control their engagement. But the Nassau is down, and the South Carolina is well on its way. And the enemy team has 3 ships that are all about half health. The South Carolina, St. Louis, and this Novik. And the other South Carolina for that matter. Which you hate to see. But it also is what happens when you group up as a team. It's easier to share that damage around. And if the enemy team isn't focusing fire, you're going to get away with that. You know, all of their remaining ships now, below half health. So if you had focused down any one target as a team, that's, you know, 2 ships gone, 3 ships gone, that you're no longer taking damage from. And that's why focus fire is so important. And I talked about it the other day in that kind of comeback win that some of my teammates had. And what got them through that fight is they all shot the same target. Someone would call the shot and everyone would focus it down. That's a very good fire for Spud to have gotten there on the St. Louis, but it looks like the St. Louis put it out right away, and you hope you can get another one quickly, but Spud is going to have to be careful here. They're now spotted, and there's a couple cruisers getting in close. No one looks to be paying full attention, but at the same time, it's not going to take much for people to start shooting him and the damage to start piling up. So first target here is going to be the St. Louis, and we know the St. Louis used damage control, so a fire here would be so amazing. And it looks like he's just not going to get it yet. He had to check his quarter there, or bow. He's getting close to an island. Don't want to pull any big mistakes like that. And there's the fire. All right, that's exactly what you want. What you don't want is what happened to his team. Spud's team is down to nothing. It's him, that Urian, and a 9 health Samson. So I'd say a lot of weight is on the shoulder of a pair of cruisers, and Spuds is getting focused down. Gets a fire lit on him, puts it out right away, but returns a fire on that St. Louis, and with 2 fires going, you can see how quickly that St. Louis starts to lose health. And when you mix that in with some gunfire, you can make short work of a target that had far superior hit points. One more tick on those fires and he's gone. Come on. There it is. So that's one less target, but the St. Louis gets a parting fire and breaks Spud's rudder. That's not good. The last thing Spud can afford here is to lose health. And it's going to be burning for another 25 seconds. And looks like the rudder is completely jammed as well. On some ships, that's not a big deal. Like the St. Louis, this is your natural position. You just do circles and shoot with whatever guns happen to be pointing directly at the enemy. But in a ship like the Tenryu, where you've got these slow rotating turrets, it really does hurt you because you can't keep your guns on a target, so you never wind up doing damage. Now it looks like the friendly Samson there has dropped a smoke, potentially for Spuds to get into. And if he can, that's really gonna help him. If there's some enemies in range, and that's always the thing with smoke. It's only as valuable as the targets that you can shoot out of it. So that means targets need to be lit and in range. And if those two things aren't happening, you've kind of wasted a smoke. And maybe the Samson just hit the wrong key and didn't mean to lay one there. Not sure. But it really isn't too useful. And I also think the Samson made a mistake in firing his guns. You don't really want to announce your position when you're on low health. You know, this Samson, he can sail around all day, get in behind the enemy, get caps. He's the fastest thing on the map, has the best detection. And the enemy team's got no destroyers, so nothing's going to run up on him. But with that Jurian dead, the bulk of this match falls to Cheesy Spud. And hopefully Cheesy Spud doesn't disappoint, but either way, it's going to be a well-fought match. Already 64,000 damage. First volley there gets a fire on that Dresden. Very crucial to get that. Although, looks like the Dresden put it out. But that means their damage control's used. If you can get one more fire, you can stop shooting, just disappear for a bit, and let the fire do its work, and there it is. And personally, I would be considering that right here. Just stopping firing. The fire is going to get them down. I don't see the instant need to kill them, but at the same time, land cover has broken contact, so maybe Spuds just knew that. And there is the kill, picking up number 4, up to almost 68,000 damage, and now it's 1 versus 3. And in a situation like this, the Tenryu is actually a pretty decent ship to be in. Because of its smaller size and its speed, you can really put yourself in some good positions to deal with the enemy. The Novik appears, Spuds gets the only volley off. Unfortunately, it looks like those South Carolinas are kind of sitting, 20-30 degrees apart. And that's going to mean it's hard for Spuds to control angles against them. And that's always going to be a concern. The Novik pops back up, and you can see Spud just weaving back and forth, using WSD as quickly as possible to try to dodge damage, and gets lucky. Takes 200 there, and none out of those volleys. Hopefully Spuds can disappear here. I often say, when you're low on numbers, you got to be aggressive, but in this situation, what is going to pay off for Spuds is a bit more passive controlling play. And the reason is, open the range, get out of range of those South Carolinas. Then you're one-on-one with a Novik. Once the Novik's done, then you can worry about the South Carolinas, who hopefully, like most battleship players, will just sail in straight lines and eat your torpedoes. A very lucky parting fire, and things are looking a little more promising. But the gunfire keeps coming Spud's way, and he's going to remain detected. South Carolinas are all kind of charging in at him. That Novik is. You can see Spud working towards the edge of the map, just trying to keep distance. And distance is a good thing to do. If you're confident in your shooting abilities and know that at range you can hit targets, there's no reason not to open that range. Use your skill, your gunnery. And you can also see the better trajectory of the Tenryu shells over that Novik, definitely giving a bit of an advantage. Spud isn't maneuvering too much here, but the Novik just is unable to hit him as a big old Russian plane flies overhead. And I think its propeller was stationary. And here's that advantage again. 8.3 kilometer detection. Can't stealth fire torps, but it did allow Spud to get in, drop them, and if that South Carolina keeps closing blindly, it could work out. And a big hit there, 2,700 damage, taking over half of the Novik's remaining health. Come on, buddy, you can do it. One more hit and you've got the Kraken. You may not be able to take out these South Carolinas, but at least you've gone down fighting. And who knows, that South Carolina is sailing in a pretty straight line. And with the distance he's closed, I would say is inside torpedo range. Just one more shell. There it is. Picks up the Kraken, lands a volley of torpedoes, meaning that South Carolina's a goner too, gets the double strike, and now it's 1v1. Wow, what a turnaround. Unfortunately, I don't know that Spuds has the health to deal with that South Carolina because I think he's on some pretty high hit points. And all the South Carolina has to do is sail into the middle of Bravo and then work over towards Charlie. Spud's best out here is to get over to Alpha and try to just outcap, continuously juggle the caps. Tenryu definitely has the speed, and South Carolina is a slow ship. The other advantage Spud has here right now is detection. He's going to know where the South Carolina is long before the South Carolina knows where he is. The one thing working against him is that clock, and you can see with the enemy team actively having 2 caps right now, having picked up Bravo there in that firefight, they're running ahead. And I think that may wind up being the decision maker. If that Novik in South Carolina hadn't managed to get Bravo there, Spud would be ahead in points, and all he would have to do is kind of passively make sure the enemy South Carolina doesn't take that advantage. But with the tables reversed, the enemy team having 2 caps and walking slowly away with the point lead, Spud's gonna have to do something pretty aggressive here. And all you can hope is that enemy South Carolina doesn't have a good head on his shoulders and makes a mistake. You saw the last one, what 3 torpedoes did to him. If he can land 3 on this South Carolina, there's actually a fight. But I really do see that as being the only way Spuds gets out of this. Simply because a gunfight, he's not going to win quick enough. We're down to 2 minutes, 10 seconds. It's going to have to be a torpedo volley. The points, you're not getting that back. There's not enough time. And that really kind of sucks because a really well played game by Spud is going to come down a bit to chance. And there's the South Carolina. His guns aren't here, so Spud gets the first volley off. But no matter how slow that ship's guns are, they are coming around. And hopefully Spud can duck the shells here. Not so lucky. And regardless of outcome, that was an amazing game, and if Spud had dodged those shots, I think he could have gotten behind the island, done a stealth torpedo attack, and potentially have won this game. 289,000 credits, just shy of 2,200 experience, First Blood, Confederate, Double Strike, Arsonist, Kraken, High Caliber. 97,000 damage, 127 shells, 3 torps, 6 kills, 15 fires and 2 floods, and a ton of defense of the caps and the solo cap. This game really came down to cheesy Spud's play, and it was exceptional. They did a great job. They knew when they needed to push certain areas and really how to maximize their ship. They didn't get over aggressive. You know, at the start when they got pressure, they turned out, they opened the distance, and the Japanese ships do a very good job of that. And 1,495 experience, more experience than anyone else in the game, and he was on the losing team. That shows how great this match was. And it is a heartbreak that that came down to a loss, but that just happens sometimes. It's a game. Anyways, thank you very much, Cheesy Spud, for sending this in. I loved watching it. It was very entertaining. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. If you did, please consider giving a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys later.